Welcome into yet another edition of the Baseline Jumper podcast. My name is Jason Goldstein, and on the line with me right now is a man that I tossed my shoe at the other day and got a technical foul for it. My partner, Ben McDonald, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is back on the basketball court. Ben, what's up, dude?
Who throws a shoe? I mean, really? I am feeling great, Jason. As you mentioned, back on the basketball court. My favorite day of the year so far, I would say. I would say strongly my favorite day of the year, just getting back on the basketball court. No amount of bricks thrown up today could possibly dampen my enthusiasm.
Well, no, because you have great players in the city of Pittsburgh like Le'Veon Bell, who comes into your gym and plays pickup. So, I mean, who's better than you?
It's a well-made point, and we've had some decent weather the last day. Before that, we had wind that knocked out power in Pittsburgh, but I can feel summer. I can feel springing, Jason. I can just feel it in my bones. Winter is almost over. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, we can't skip spring, dude. Like, there's the NBA playoffs, there's Game of Thrones, there's way too much going on. And it's crazy how in the week and change since the All-Star break ended, there is so much to talk about. And being our open was about throwing a shoe at someone and getting teed up. I have to get your thoughts on DeMarcus Cousins because aside from Shoegate, as we can affectionately call it, he's officially back, and the Warriors are a better team for it. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on Cousins and where you kind of see the Warriors separating themselves from the rest of the NBA as we head into the home stretch of the regular season.
I mean, I'd say really the only disappointing thing for me this NBA season is that I'm not trying to be negative, but I do kind of feel like the Warriors have sort of just put this season away already. I mean, it's a joke when you look at their team. They're the most talented team of all time, and I feel like it's getting harder and harder to even argue it, given the fact that they have two players who are absolute cinch Hall of Famers that are going to go down as top 25 players of all time in their prime. They have at least two more that have a shot at it. Maybe, I mean, you could argue there are six guys who could make it to the Hall of Fame off of this team.
Draymond's peaked, man. I think Draymond's peaked, but I agree with you on all the other ones.
I just mean, you could make the case that if things broke the right way, there are six guys on this team who could go to the Hall of Fame, and five of them are debatably in their prime. I mean, that's unheard of. This is like the Bill Russell Celtics when there were only 10 teams, 8 teams. I mean, this is the level of talent that the Warriors currently have, and it's kind of an embarrassment for the rest of the league. And I mean, the one thing that it's kind of a bummer is when you see Cousins playing this well. It's really exciting, but at the same time, it just kind of hammers home the fact that there's really no one else in the league that can even get close to them. I mean, you look at the standings, the Warriors are barely even trying. They lead the Western Conference by almost 2 games, and they're within shouting distance of home court advantage. They're only 3 games behind the Bucks, and the Bucks are going. You watch the Bucks play; they just play on a different level of intensity than the Warriors do night to night, and yet they're still right within striking distance. So I mean, I think as a basketball fan, it's beautiful. We have to appreciate it because we're probably never going to see this much talent on a basketball team ever again, and yet there is this sort of feeling that it's all leading to this preordained ending of the Warriors hoisting the trophy yet again.
Yeah, and people forget that Cousins is signed for a whopping $5 million on a 1-year contract. So he'll get his ring. You're looking at 1 to 2 players out of that rotation likely leaving the team in free agency. But that was a good way to open the show. But there is still so much to get to. I want to move on to James Harden, who I think is the record holder on Baseline Jumper for most heroes of the week. So I'm going to let you take the reins on this. But first game after the All-Star break, the Rockets and the Lakers, there was a very questionable call, Ben, at the end of the game where LeBron took a charge on James Harden and he fouled out. And he ended up making some comments about the officials and getting fined $25,000. I mean, what do you make of that? I know it's a few days old. And also, do you think Harden's officiated differently than other marquee players in the NBA?
I have absolutely no interest in Harden complaining about officiating when his entire game is foul hunting. I mean, and nothing against him, but that's his game is predicated on guys having to defend him differently for fear of fouling him. because he's a master of drawing contact. So I have no sympathy for James Harden. If he's officiated differently, I think it's deserved because of the way that he plays. I mean, you have to officiate him a little differently because he's essentially trying to bait the refs even more so than the other player. And so I think they have to. I don't think that refs have a choice when it comes to officiating Harden differently because if they officiate him like a normal player, it makes their job very, very difficult because of the way that he plays. The little extra steps, the little things he does with his arms to create space, things like that. He does a lot of these things, and he's a master of hooking the other player's arm, getting that in there. So then when he goes up with the ball, it looks like the guy has kind of initiated contact. So I mean, you have to. I don't think you can officiate Harden the same way that you do a player like a LeBron James or something because they just play completely different styles of basketball.
Well, it just kind of irked me that it was a charge that took him out of a game of that magnitude because we're going to have a lot more on the Lakers. They've kind of been the subject of our ire the last couple of weeks, and rightfully so. But as far as the Rockets are concerned, a game like that, right out of the All-Star break, and LeBron takes a charge on Harden, changes the outcome of the game. The Lakers win that, and then they go on to completely poo the bed. But then the Rockets have kind of struggled. They really don't win unless Harden puts up 30 or more. And interestingly enough, we saw a very impressive streak come to an end last night. James Harden's streak of scoring 30 or more points has been halted at 32. So as your lifetime hero, Ben, I want you to pay a baseline jumper homage to the James Harden scoring streak because Wilt Chamberlain holds the record at 65, and he said the entire time, I'm probably not going to get number one. No. But I just need a Ben McDonald rant about this impressive 32-game scoring streak of 30 or more points in a game.
I mean, I think that it's one of the more impressive streaks that we've seen, just because of the way that Harden plays, the fact that, other teams can, in today's NBA, really gear up to take away certain players. And I think one of the things that it really highlights is just the evolution of basketball in the 21st century. I mean, if we look at the way that the game is played, it is remarkable. I mean, I feel like we really sometimes don't appreciate just how much the game has evolved in the last 10 years. It is absolutely incredible the way that James Harden puts up points. And even 10 years ago, we were coming off a season where the Celtics played Kendrick Perkins and KG up front. They had Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rondo. They had three players who really were not going to shoot threes. In today's NBA, that would be suicide. You couldn't play that many guys who just don't shoot outside of the three-point line. And now you have a guy like Harden who can create so much of his offense behind the three-point line. And you look at the offshoots of it, Jason, and you see guys like D'Angelo Russell, who I think a D'Angelo Russell 10 years ago would not be even a starter 10 years ago because of the way that he plays. He's so perimeter oriented. And in today's league, it's so important to have the ability to create shots from the perimeter that guys like D'Angelo Russell have not only become valuable, but they've become all-star level players because of how important it is to be able to do that. Because the inside game has changed so much. Teams have adapted many different defenses to neutralize big men and players who live at the rim. I mean, Tom Thibodeau's style of defense neutralized so many different offensive threats that now we've really seen guys like Harden just thrive in this kind of three-point mania of the NBA. And, his streak is just really emblematic of the way that the league has turned and, where we might be going in the future as well.
Yeah, and an interesting stat to add to that is the Rockets are just 6-7 this season when Harden plays and doesn't score 30. So that was their sixth win where Harden had 29 or less. And they're 26-16 when he does score 30. So he's had 42 games. That's more than half of this regular season with at least 30 points in a game. Very impressive numbers. The only thing is, as we record this podcast, the Rockets are currently fifth in the Western Conference standings at 35 and 25. So they're kind of stuck right in the middle of the Western Conference playoff picture. Do you see them passing a Portland or an OKC, or do you think that they're right where they're supposed to be heading into the playoffs?
I'd really have to look at the schedule. I think it's more likely they slip. I know Utah has a very, very, very easy schedule. I believe they have the easiest schedule of any team in the NBA going forward. So I think they're very likely to win some additional games. On top of that, they have one more home game than they do road. They're a tremendous home team, so that's going to really, really help them. So I think Utah is going to climb up the standings quite a bit. I mean, we'll have to see what happens with Oklahoma City, with Portland, with Denver. Those are teams that are we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye on. As good as they've been, with the way that the Western Conference is currently laid out, you have one 3 or 4 game losing streak, and you could find yourself slipping down the standings pretty quickly. So I would say I see them probably more than likely than not in the 4 to 6 range. But Jason, the thing with the Rockets is it's hard to say that it's hard to get caught up in the Western Conference playoff race the way that we used to, just because of what I said about the Warriors and the fact that, you look at a team like the Rockets and you say, wow, they really gave it to the Warriors last year. And then you look at the roster changes and the Warriors got better. The Warriors added DeMarcus Cousins. Meanwhile, the Rockets had to cut payroll. So it's just kind of this. It's hard to get too invested right now in the Western Conference when as I said, it kind of feels like the Warriors are just gonna dance their way to a championship again.
Well, speaking of the Warriors, this just in, because I thought my open was really well planned out, but I just saw, according to a source, that the NBA actually lifted DeMarcus Cousins' tech for throwing the shoe. So while the joke is still really well placed, I'm just going to say that we missed the news because we were stuck in an elevator for 30 minutes today. So, that happens sometimes. Do you know what I'm alluding to?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, I can educate you on the air in front of our dozens and dozens of viewers or listeners. The Trailblazers are in Boston, and they were stuck in an elevator, the majority of the players, for 30 minutes. And Enes Kanter and a bunch of the other Trailblazers players were, going live and posting videos and stuff. They were stuck in an elevator for 30 minutes in Boston.
If you miss out on the inner workings of the NBA, Jason Goldstein has got you covered. Jason Goldstein will give you the scoop, the insider scoops around the league. And that's what people come for, Jason. That's what they come for on the show.
Well, what do you say, Ben? They come for the basketball analysis.
They stay for the dad jokes.
Ah, my man. And speaking of insight, I'd like to take us into our marquee matchups of the week, because the calendar's turning to March on Friday, buddy. And there's so much good basketball to be had. I kind of was looking at our last 3 marquee matchups of the week, and I watched most of those games over the weekend. And we have been making some good picks, so I don't think we can let the people down at all. So I'm going to start with a doozy, because this team, as we've talked about time and time again on Baseline Jumper, was not on our radar at all coming into the season. But I'm going to start with tomorrow night, the 27th, Bucks at Kings. The Kings are fighting for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference with the 2 LA teams, and that's a big home game against Giannis and company, and I want to see who pulls that one out. So the first marquee matchup of the week, Bucks at Kings.
And you also could make the argument, those are 2 of, I would say the 3 or 4 hardest playing teams in the league. The Bucks play at just an incredible intensity level. I really feel like we can't say enough about Coach Budenholzer and what he's done in Milwaukee. Just watching the way that his players play this season makes me think he has to win the Coach of the Year this year. Because there's guys on that team. I watched Tony Snell play many games for the Bulls, and he just looks like a different player in Milwaukee because his role has been so simplified. And then on the other hand, the Kings, I don't know if you've watched much Marvin Bagley, but that guy is like one of those Pulp Fiction pens to the heart where you just stab that needle into your heart. He's just pure adrenaline. It's unbelievable.
But I know that. You know